Today is July 17, 2008. We're at the Burleson Public Library. This interview is being conducted for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress. Today we have here Mr. James Hobbs of Burleson. He served in the U.S. Army Air Force during World War II. Mr. Hobbs, please tell me when you were born and what your childhood was like.
All right, I'll do the best I can if I can remember all that. You know, I've been here a long time. I was born in Nesbitt, Mississippi. We were red dirt farmers, and I left the farm and joined the Air Force. I started in Camp Shelby, Mississippi. I was there for a few days, and me and a whole lot of other people that were a bit patriotic and decided to join the Air Force after Pearl Harbor. So they had more soldiers than they knew what to do with, more people. We weren't soldiers then. And we wallowed around there a little while, and they took our aptitude tests, and some knew what they were doing and some didn't care, and I was one of them that thought, I want to get out of here quick as I can, so I didn't do too well on my aptitude test. So they sent me to Wichita Falls, Texas to go to Air Force mechanic school. Somehow I ended up in Pendleton. I was there a short while. Ended up in Pendleton, Oregon, and all the schools were full. They just was pushing us around in every direction. We were walking guard duty and doing things we hadn't had much training at that time. So finally I got enrolled in a little school, and I became a sheet metal man. And
what did you do? What did a sheet metal man do?
Well, the airplane, you know, gets shot up, crashed. Anything that was wrong with the metal on the outside of the plane, we had to fix it. And I attended a short school, and they formed a category and sent me out as a shop foreman in this sheet metal shop in this squadron that they organized. And it was really a mess. So finally they shipped about 300 raw recruits in and sent us down to California, and we had to train them troops. We'd had very little training ourselves, so we had a book to go by. Really the problem was they just had more people than they knew what to do with at that time. But anyway, we made the best of it and ended up with a pretty decent squadron. And we went back to Pendleton, Oregon, where we started from, where they left. A lot of planes were crashing, and instead of us getting to work on what we were supposed to, they made a crash crew out of us. And when the airplane crashed, we had to go out and pick up every part of that airplane and bring it back. And we didn't assemble it, but we got it where they could assemble it and try to figure out why the plane crashed. We did that a while, and then I decided I wanted to fly. And I applied for a cadet school, and I passed all the exams, but it was like everything else. They had an influx of people there, just big waiting list on everything, all the school. So they ended up sending us to, and so went down to California, and went back to Pendleton, Oregon, went down to Amargosa, New Mexico, little training down there, back to Pendleton, Oregon, and then sent us to Rapid City, South Dakota. Finally made a squadron out of us. All of us had our tools and what we were supposed to do, had very little experience. And they sent us to Camp Patrick, Virginia on the East Coast, loaded us on a ship and sent us down through the Panama Canal back to Australia. We sat there on that big ship for 3 days looking at beautiful Australia, thinking we would get off any minute. And finally that dude pulled out and went up to Milne Bay, New Guinea. There was a coconut log dock, and that ship had over 15,000 troops on it, and it pulled right up to that dock. And we got off on these coconut logs and went out, and they set all of our equipment off. And that's where we started our overseas duty, right there. I remember there's 3 guys sitting on that dock when we got down there, and first thing we asked them was, how far to town? They said 7,000 miles. So we didn't have a very good time. The insects were terrible. The mosquitoes liked to eat us alive. Guys were, it was had a beautiful beach, coconut trees, but there wasn't anything to do. They were stationers of what they were doing. And some of these guys couldn't take it. We had about a half a dozen that went off their rocker. So the CO Santa decided that he had to do something, so he had us hauling rocks. We'd haul rocks on a wheelbarrow over in and go back, take them back over there again just to give us something to do. Well, then we got our chance. Then we invaded Camp Glasgow, New Britain. Still half cocked, didn't know exactly what we was going to do. And he asked for 50 volunteers to go in with the Marines and help set up strip operation. Well, we did. We went in the second day. One thing I remember about this, we was laying out there on a LST boat, playing poker. We was ready to go. We didn't have you can't get off that LST till it gets you in. So we were playing poker, and I had aces and eights. I had to win in hand. And I looked up, and I saw a Japanese little zero come right out of the sun right down, and he turned that red bomb loose. It looked like it was coming right on. Went right off the bow of the boat just a little bit. It damaged the boat, but not much. It didn't hurt any of us. And of course, about that time, all heck broke loose. Everybody started shooting in there, and then there was several airplanes tried to sink us, but we didn't get a direct hit. That afternoon we landed, and I had migraine headaches. And one come on me by the time we were landing. That's as sick as I've been in my life. And they put us in, we landed, and the field artillery pieces were sitting in the water, firing over our head at the Japs in the mountains. They had field artillery too, and they would run the guns out of their caves on that little railroad track like thing, and they'd fire on us and then run back in that cave, see? So we had it pinned down to begin with. And that was the most miserable night I was spending my life. The next morning I got over that headache, but I was sick as a horse. We moved in, and nothing happened right in that area. We just, we hadn't had an airplane yet, see? We didn't have one airplane. We had all our crews, everything ready. But wasn't the airplane signed to us anything. So we wallowed around there in New Britain for about 6 months. Then went into Hollanda, New Guinea, which is a part of Dutch New Guinea, which is north, getting closer to Philippine Island. And there we got our airplanes. And we supposed to haul cargo. And part of my outfit did. But they wishy-washed us around a little bit and did a little politicking, and I got out of the sheet metal shop and became a flight engineer. I operated the spray mechanism on that airplane. And that's the way I fought my war. We sprayed all the islands around here, and then we went on up to...
Now explain to me, what were you spraying for?
Mosquitoes. DDT, spraying DDT, you can't buy it now, it's not... And I mixed it with my hands. I mixed it with everything you can think of.
Did you have any?
I'm not dead, but didn't hurt me.
Did you have any escorts when you flew over?
We did. We had fight escort in certain areas, but By that time, the Navy had beat the daylights out of the Japs. The Air Force had just pounded the stuff out of them. The Air Force was nothing. All we bothered was a few stragglers. See, they already had the Navy had already been through there and just suck all them. Of course, we lost a lot too, but just they didn't have Japs didn't have much left by that time. That was in 19. About May of 1944. And we had it pretty easy because really all we had to contend with was when the Army and Marines declared the island secure, that meant that they had been there and had a good, wiped them out more or less, but they always left a bunch of stragglers. And that's about all we had to fear was the stragglers, and some of them was pretty rugged people. And they'd come out, they were marooned in a mountain somewhere, but they'd come out and come down and attack us once in a while, but not a whole lot of that. Then we went on into, we did our thing and got our plane ready, and we did a lot of these ship stuff all over the country. And by the way, I got to go back to Australia on a rest leave, which was like heaven to me. You know, you're laying there fighting them bugs, and all at once you get to go back and you get to sleep in a good bed and have a steak, and the girls were plentiful, and we just had a wonderful time going back to Australia. But tell you a little bit about, see, when we got there, they gave us a army cot and a tent, 4 guys to a tent. And if it rained, the water just come up in that tent. You had to get what little stuff you had up on that cot, because it's in the rainy season it rained all the time. In the dry season it rained about half the time. That's the way it was. And it was hard for you to keep anything in decent condition because it got wet all the time. You know. But we lived in that tent, and you had to have a mosquito net. If you didn't, you would have died. And you get you some sticks and make you a board across the thing, and let your mosquito net hang down. If you're lucky, you'd get you some kind of boards and put across the top of your mosquito net, because when the Japanese, they managed to get one plane up every night, and it was just, we'd hear them, you know, and they'd be shooting at that sucker, and flak's flying down there. Well, that flak was getting to you. You'd take 200 guns shooting up, that flak's got to come down. Somebody, it cuts the tents all up, but never hurt anybody, but it was good damage you a little bit. So that was our, we didn't have much of an encounter down in New Britain. We did have, there's some natives that we had a little around with. We formed 3 or 4 wee guys. We'd say, well, nothing to do at times, see, and they'd say, well, let's go somewhere. So we all get our little carbines, and we'd take out down the beach and go up through the mountains or somewhere, and we got to shooting these wild hogs. And the natives worshiped those hogs. They were their god. We got out in a hurry one day. It was, I don't know what they would have done. Well, they couldn't have done anything. They didn't have anything but sticks and stuff like that. But we got to take out there. But then we left. I was in Cape Gloucester, New Britain. Then went on into the land of New Guinea. We were there about 6 months, and then they invaded the Philippine Islands. And we got to go, we landed 3 days after the Army did. And I did get to see a kamikaze plane hit a ship. You know, we heard all kinds of stories, and I guess it was true. Like, I know it was, because I saw some of the chains some of that planes that we captured would have a chain with a handcuff on it. He said, saw one, is all I saw. And they say that they would put those old boys in an airplane, he'd just have enough fuel to make it one way, and he couldn't bail out because he already had his funeral preached and everything, you know, so he was, and the only thing he knew to do was to fly into a ship and try to sink that darn ship. But then we went into the Philippines, and that was a rainy season, rained all the time. We got up to a little town called Dulog, and there was a Dulog airstrip there that the Japs had, and it was a dirt strip, but they could fly those light planes off of it. See, and we had when engineers come in, they laid us a strip of metal down so we could handle that plane. And on December the 6th in 1944, we had just gotten a new man come in the outfit from my hometown. At least I always called Memphis, Tennessee, my hometown, but I was stretching it a little bit because I was down in the country a little bit from Memphis. And the guy come in, and of course I'd glad to see him. He could tell me about a few things. He just come in as a replacement to our outfit. So we decided, said, well, Charlie, we'll take you to town. Well, the town wasn't nothing. There wasn't a building there made out of lumber, a few little made out of grass huts and things like that. So we went down, and we had to buy some, we tried to buy something good to eat, so we bought some eggs, we bought some chickens and some bananas. So Charlie and another guy and I got a Jeep, and we went down to Tacloban, which was the capital of Leyte, and it had just been beat all to pieces. There wasn't nothing left hardly. And we tried to find us something decent to eat, you know. We didn't have we were used to eating Australian rations, and we had dry biscuits in a tin can, and nothing fresh. All that was old dehydrated potatoes or something like that. So we bought us a few dozen eggs, and we found a little stand down there and bought us some bananas. And the Japanese, the Filipinos already knew, they were pretty smart people. They already started manufacturing booze. I had some, I guess they sold the Japs some. Anyway, it was in a beer bottle. So he bought us a few bottles of booze, and it was, I forgot what you call it, it was some kind of whiskey made of sugar cane. And we got in that Jeep, and we started back home, and we was drinking that booze, and by the time we got into the outfit, we had them chickens and bananas and eggs all in the same box, and we done run over a rock and knocked a hole in the radiator in the Jeep. And it was leaking water, and we'd had a bucket, we'd stop by every creek we'd see and fill it up again, try to get home. And we finally made it, and they got there and they pulled the old Jeep up in the area, and we was looking at, we opened that box up a little bit, and the chicken jumped right and run off, and had eggs and bananas was all laying in there. And we laughing at it, and all at once I looked out, and something said, "Poof!" And I saw an airplane. By the time, wham, a bunch of airplanes come over, you know, and because our airplane was hardly ever fly that low, it was just full dark. And there was 13 Japanese transport planes loaded with paratroopers, unloaded on us right there. And whoever was sitting there didn't have a weapon or anything, and had of course, I think the government knew something was going on, because they made us dig a foxhole all the way around our whole outfit. And we thought, that's stupid. Why are they making us do that? But I believe they really expected that to happen. Because it hadn't been for that foxhole, we'd been in bad shape, because them suckers, first thing they did when they jumped, well, the first guy that jumped out, the chute didn't open. He hit the ground, plop. Then the rest of them started hitting here, went on for 3 or 4 miles down there. And some of them were jumping there. 2 of them were tied to the same parachute. I remember seeing that. See, all this happened 60-something years ago, so it's getting a little bit vague to me. But anyway, we got ourselves organized right quick. We got in our position and had our rifles, and we had barbed wire strung all around our area with cans tied to it. And then during Japs recognized that. You know, they get out there and they talk. We saying, we didn't know what they're saying, but they speaking in Japanese, and good. We'd shoot at them, and they'd be out where you couldn't hit them. They'd be down behind something or something, and then they charged us 2 or 3 times, but they never got in our area. One bunch got in our area and they killed 2 guys right there. But they did things like get in our motor pool and crank up our trucks and start. They knew how to drive, put it in gear and turn the headlights on and start it toward our area and jump out. We'd have to stop that truck. They did that a couple of times. Anyway, that night it was kind of a bad night, and the next morning it started to rain, and them foxholes filled with water. And we had a tent, but we could, we'd have to. Our aim was to take care of this corner, and that's what they wanted us to do, to keep that road open for somebody coming in. But anyway, the next night they had about, I guess they posted maybe 10 snipers in coconut trees, and they'd fire on us. They started just late in the afternoon, and you didn't know where it was. There's a coconut tree everywhere. All you knew was up in a coconut tree somewhere. And they'd fire away, and we would. When it would, you got to get out. You got to get underground, so you hit that water. And it's kind of chilly. But anyway, the next day, well, of course, we ordered reinforcement. We said, we need some help up here. We don't know how to fight. So they sent 1 second lieutenant and 1 private. And he brought us a jeep load of hand grenades. And we had plenty of bullets over there. And he was in the infantry. He said, I want 50 men. So we volunteered, 50 volunteers. We got all the ammunition we could carry, and we shot the top out of every tree and every brush pile around there, getting rid of them snipers. And I believe we killed 9. But we had no more sniping, and the rest of it already gone on. They burned every airplane we had, went on to another part of the island and everything else. But anyway, that was the worst dewlog. So we left, I can't remember dates, but sometime after that they invaded Luzon. And our planes were ruined in there. They burned our planes. But we got into Luzon, when we landed, we flew and we landed, the Japs were shelling Clark Field out of the mountains. They had their field artillery piece. They'd come out and shell. So anyway, we went along till we knocked them out. Our guys, just Air Force coming in, they demolished it. And Luzon was pretty pleasant. It wasn't a whole lot going on. They were just staging, getting ready to go into Japan or go into, I think we were supposed to go into Korea, what our orders were. But then they dropped the atomic bomb, and the war was over, and we come home. But I had enough points to come home anyway. I wouldn't have gone into Korea. But I had more points than most of them. I don't know why it happened. But anyway, I would have come home. But I finally got on the Liberty ship. We used to go fly home on B-29s, and something happened. I don't know. The orders were never came through like it's supposed to. They put us on a Liberty ship, the whole outfit, and it got about halfway across the ocean home, and one engine blew up, and it took us 29 days to make that journey, and to come in on one engine, about 7 knots, I think. We landed at Camp Pasadena, Virginia, Camp Pendleton, California, and they got us out there and sent us home.
What have you been doing the last 63 years?
Well, I did a little bit of everything. When I got out of the service, I had no formal education. Didn't even graduate from high school. I just was having a hard time finding anything that suited me, so I met a girl who was an Arthur Murray dance instructor. And she talked to me, she said, you can dance, you come down here, we'll instruct out of you in about a week. I said, I believe I do that. So I went up and I became a dance instructor for 2 years, for nearly 2 years. And I had a good time. Your feet get flat, but it was a nice job. And I met my wife, she come along, and she was a dancer. And we got married, and we lived in Memphis at the time. And of course, that right after the war, and everything was tight, and couldn't find a decent job. Well, a man with a wife don't need a job teaching dancing, so I quit and went and got me a job as a heavy equipment operator. I was driving a bulldozer. I really didn't know how to do it. I just had a friend that hired me. And I learned that a little while, but I didn't like it. I didn't, that wasn't what I wanted to do. So I ended up with, in just a few years, I had 3 kids. And still hadn't found out what I wanted to do. I hadn't found myself, so I told my wife, I said, let's move to California. I had $1,500. Had a 12-cylinder Lincoln Cosmopolitan and a 1-wheel trailer. I loaded this up and we went to California and got out there, and it was worse in California than it was in Memphis. So I started back. My money had almost gone. I started back to Memphis, and one kid took pneumonia, and we stopped in Fort Worth, and the doctor said, "You got to put her in the hospital." I said, "Doctor, I got about $150 in my name." So he said, "Well, if you'll get an apartment, I'll come over and treat her." His name was Dr. Black. He died. He was killed in an airplane not long after. But anyway, we got the little apartment, and everybody was so nice to us, till I got out and got a job, and my wife got a job. She was a bookkeeper, and I got a job working for Leonard Brothers department store in downtown Fort Worth, selling men's clothing. And I did that until I got down to weigh 120 pounds. I was about to work. I wasn't making any money, and my wife wasn't either. We had 3 kids, and so I said, I got to get out of here. So I got out and got a job selling paper goods, sacks, and I run upon a man that told me, he said, "You ought to be doing what my son's doing." I said, "Well, what in the world is your son doing?" He said, "He works for an outfit down in Eastland, Texas." He said, "This man makes all kind of flower pots and vases, and he loads them on a truck, and he goes up in Oklahoma and sells them." He said, "He makes about $350 a week." I was making $42.50. I said, "You give me that man's address, please. I won't talk to him." I went down there and I went, doggone. He said, I need a guy. And he hired me. And I did that for 5 years. And I learned a little about the floral business. Ended up, I started my own sales company at a warehouse. And I operated my own business for about 30 years, and I enjoyed it. And I retired in 1992. My wife was helping me, she's part of it. And we lived in Colleyville. And about 2 years ago, we decided my wife developed Alzheimer's. And we decided we needed to get out and get away, so we moved to Burleson in the Center Meadows center out here, and where we have, it's a gated community. That's about all different from it and everything else. And we love it, and we got, one time I felt real good, and a salesman come along and sold me 16 graveside lots up here in the lower land. And so far we've used one of them, so I guess we're gonna be the next two to go in that 16 graveside lots, and that'll be the end of us.
Well, I have to ask you a couple of questions.
All right.
I wanted you to tell your story, but I wanted to ask you a couple of things. And one of those is, what was your attitude about the atomic bomb? What did you think about that, Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
You know, I had no idea what it was. They said, atom, what is an atom? You know what it was. But we were delighted. We said, oh, thank goodness. And when they dropped that second one, we were ready. Everybody was, yes, we were delighted, and we knew it saved many, many lives, a whole lot of trouble, because it's a lot of trouble to pack up and invade an island or invade anything.
And what do you think of your service now? Just looking back, what do you think of your time in the military?
Well, we did some good, but it could have done. We could have done a lot more if circumstances had been a little different. The government, throws things at you, and I guess that's the only way they can, is the way they operate, especially being a service. And I know it's operated differently now. But I'm kind of proud of what I did. I feel like I served my country, and I'd do it again. If I needed to go tomorrow, I'd go.
What do you think people of my generation should think of your service in World War II?
Oh, well, you probably think it's old hat. I don't know. I talk to my kids about it. They'd rather talk about it than anything. It's kind of funny. I'm 80. I'll be 88 in November, and my wife is 82. And we say, well, we have two children at home. One's 60 and one's 65. No, one's 60 and one's 55. But we do. We have two daughters that moved in with us. And we know that Mama's in pretty good shape. She's had Alzheimer's 5 years, and we're going to try to, unless she's doing damage to herself, we're going to keep it home. And we three, and we kind of planned on that, and that's the way it is. And they love to talk about the service, and they're so proud of me. They don't know what to do. Them medals, they said, they want to put them up on a big board. I don't know, there's somewhere at home. And I said, they don't mean nothing to me, but they said, well, they ought to. But I'm really, what hurt me more than anything else is the guy burned the flag and that kind of thing. That tears me up. That makes me want to go in there and shoot him or something. But
have you ever had a chance to fly a plane since the war?
Well, see, I wasn't a pilot.
You were just on the plane.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
a flight engineer. I knew how to operate I flew it, all of us fly some. He lets you sit in there with a pilot and go back and go to sleep, and let me and the co-pilot, if I could handle a plane. I had enough, I really didn't care. And I had a friend who was a crop duster. I did, and he had a two-seater, and we did he showed me how he was dusting them crops a lot, but I really didn't care if I flew anymore. But I fly a lot, you know, I don't right now, but I have. You know, I've been all over the world and since the war.
Have you been back to New Guinea or the Philippines or Australia, anywhere?
No.
Ever had the desire to go back?
I used to say I'd like to take my wife and go back, and my wife had been to Australia just 10 years ago, but I didn't go. I didn't particularly care. You know, I don't guess I would. My wife was quite a traveler. She'd been all over the world a number of times, but she always went with a bunch of women and some men that was in the flower industry, and they had all kind of programs all over the world, all over everywhere. They went down, but they tried to get me to go, and I said, well, I got to stay home and work. But anyway, that wasn't the reason. One time I went, and all I did was carry them heavy bags for all them other women, and I was at Porter. And the last time, I remember the last time we at the airport, and we sitting down. Well, I'd got no in, set of bag, couldn't check in yet. And she looked, she said, oh, there comes Vivian. Will you go get her bag? I went out there to weigh about 100 pounds. I got that in, and I got it set out about that time. She said, oh, there comes Marilyn. Will you help her? And I did that about 3 times. I said, that's why you're going by yourself. So anyway, I've been on, I've been to Europe, and my thing is fishing. I'm a fisherman. I fished all over. I love Canada. I love to fish in Canada. And I've been up there about 25 times, I guess, on all kind of different fishing trips. But I can't go anymore because I can't leave my wife. Just as long as I've been away from her, and since I do go pheasant hunting once a week up South Dakota. Since last November, I went pheasant hunting. My wife goes everywhere I go. If I go out to cut the grass, she takes a chair and sits out there and watches me cut the grass.
You ever keep up with anybody you served with or go to any reunions?
You know, about numerous years ago, a guy called me and says, he wrote me a letter and said, Earl Knowles, that's one of my buddies, old Earl's house burned down, lost everything he had. Can you help him? That was when I was so poor I couldn't afford a stamp to write him back and tell him no, hardly. That was back right after the war. And I didn't keep up with anything then, but in the last 15 years, I got a list, and everywhere I go, I try to find everybody. I got on the internet and get numbers from everywhere, and right now I can only find, there's 3 of us left. One in northern, not Minnesota, anyway, way up north, and one's in Houston, and myself. We had another one that was in Alabama, and I call them boys about once a month, but they never call me. But I don't know why. I said, well, don't worry, I called you. I said, I got an all-distance telephone, and I talk to somebody all the time, all my relatives live away from here. But that's the only 3 of us I know of now. There's CO and a lot of us that I run into and I looked up, kept up with, but they've all played out, but 3 of us that I know of.
Was there anything else that you'd like to add in the time we have left, or?
Oh, not really. I'm just about giving you all the hoorah that I know. but I enjoy talking about it a little bit. I got a thing that I written in longhand, and my daughter says she's going to type it off. So I knew all the dates of all these invasions I went on and all that stuff. I don't have it. I can tell you, I remember December the 6th, because December the 7th was when Pearl Harbor was, and those guys that jumped it, they was having another Pearl Harbor was what they was having when they jumped on it. But I wrote down, I wrote a story of my life when I lived, and then I wrote up until I went into service. Then I started there. I went into service till the day I got out. And it's somewhere, I don't know where it is, but my daughter said, I'm going to type that up and let somebody read it years from now.
Well, Mr. Hobbs, thank you very much for coming. And I've really enjoyed hearing